Where do Tunisia's rich live? Just 15 kilometers from the capital. Welcome to the Carthage district. Here, 1 square meter of land costs almost $8,000. Even the president of Tunisia has a residence here. And his neighbors are the country's wealthiest people. So what's so special about this place? It's simple. It was in this district that a peace agreement was signed in a war that lasted, believe it or not, over 2,000 years. But who managed to fight whom for so long? On February 5, 1985, the mayor of Rome and the mayor of Tunisian Carthage met in this district and officially signed a peace treaty between Rome and Carthage. In doing so, they ended the Third Punic War, which began back in the 2nd century BCE. But why was the conflict concluded here, of all places? And what does the mayor of Carthage have to do with it? The fact is that before our era, this land was that very legendary Carthage, of which only ruins remain. The ruins of ancient Carthage are one of the most interesting places in Tunisia. Here you can feel the atmosphere of a long-gone era, study the history of this land, and touch true antiquities. It's hard to imagine today, but in the 3rd century BCE, Carthage was the wealthiest city in the ancient world. It was one of the largest ports, a center of civilization. The Carthaginian Empire included parts of Spain, Sicily, Sardinia, and Corsica. The state had a powerful army and navy. And the heart of the state was its capital, the city of Carthage itself. The majestic city is protected from the sea by a single wall, while the hill where the Bursa citadel stands is surrounded by a triple row of walls, each 15 meters high, not including the towers. From the writings of Appian of Alexandria. The most astonishing feature of Carthage was its harbor, the Koton. It was a large rectangular port for merchant ships that connected to a circular dock for warships. The harbor was so enormous that traces of it are still visible on the coast of Tunisia today. There was only one way to enter and exit it, through a narrow gate about 20 meters wide. Carthage can be called neither a republic, nor a monarchy, nor anything else. The city was ruled by a council of 10, a council of 10 elders. Any citizen could be elected. We don't know exactly how the Council of 10 was elected. That is, it's somewhat reminiscent of an oligarchy. At the same time, we know that the Carthaginians were very tolerant to other faiths. Representatives of completely different confessions could pray in Carthaginian temples. But legends are told about the faith and customs of the Carthaginians themselves, and they are quite horrifying. This is a so-called tophet, a Carthaginian burial site, and there were quite a few of these tophets. In the largest one, archaeologists found 20,000 funerary urns with human ashes. What's so horrifying about that? It seems like an ordinary cemetery. Except that in the urns, along with the ashes, scientists discovered fragments of children's bones. Does this mean that 20,000 children were buried in one small patch of land? And this in a city with a population of no more than 500,000 people? According to one version, this was a ritual necropolis where firstborn children were buried after being sacrificed to the gods Tanit and Baal. At least that's what Roman historians wrote. Perhaps this is just the black legend created by authors from the rival Roman civilization. But let's remember Rome. Were they all just good-hearted sweethearts over there? We recall that in ancient times, at the slightest provocation, they were throwing people from the Tarpeian Rock. For a long time, I dreamed of seeing the ruins of Carthage. Why? Because Carthage is one of the few states that successfully resisted Roman expansion. Remember the magnificent victories of Hannibal, for example, the Battle of Cannae? Hannibal became famous for his attack on Rome in 218 BCE. His army was renowned throughout the ancient world for its invincible elephants, which the cunning general somehow miraculously managed to lead across the largest mountains in Europe, the Alps. But how did he do it? Hannibal managed to lead 37 war elephants across the Alps. Think about it, 37. And think about it, war elephants. This means they also had armor and weaponry, people riding them, and so on. In our time, scientists have tried to repeat Hannibal's feat. In the mid-20th century, American researcher John Hoyt attempted to replicate the achievement of the brilliant Carthaginian general. A zoo specially provided him with a female elephant. And John Hoyt did manage to lead her across the Alps, but in the process, the elephant lost 220 kilograms. Carthage fell as a result of the Third Punic War, and in 146 BCE it was completely destroyed. Almost all of its inhabitants were killed. Those who remained were sold into slavery. The land was sown with salt and plowed. This was how the Romans took their revenge on Carthage for its successes in the Punic Wars. Nearby, the Romans built their own province with a governor from Utica. But after the fall of the great Carthage, as if this land became cursed, first the city suffered at the hands of barbarians, and then the Byzantines and Arabs completely destroyed it. The marble and granite of the Roman polis were taken away for construction. And so it turns out, the Romans won, but as a result their province vanished without a trace. But Carthage did not vanish. So what is left of it? The great Carthage fell. The Romans wiped it off the face of the earth. Today Tunisians live on this territory, but the legendary empire did not disappear without a trace, as Caesar had dreamed. In fact, it proved impossible to destroy the Carthaginian heritage. But where is it? Remember Phoenicia from your school history textbook. A powerful maritime nation. Carthage was a part of it, because in fact, there was never a state of Phoenicia as such. Phoenicians were seafarers and fishermen. They had no state, no capital. They had a few cities: Byblos, Sidon, Tyre. And there was a legend that in Tyre lived a king who had a daughter named Elissa. He was very displeased with his son-in-law because he had accumulated a great deal of treasure. The king ordered his son-in-law to be killed. Elissa managed to hide the gold, and it was with this wealth that Carthage was founded. She sailed to the place where the city of Carthage was founded and came to be called Dido. She decided to buy some land and settle there. The local tribes gave her one condition: she could receive as much land as an ox hide could cover. But the princess resorted to a trick. She cut the hide into thin strips, and thus obtained much more land than the local tribes had expected. This is how the famous city of Carthage was founded. According to legend, the Libyan king Yarbas dreamed of marrying Dido. In response to her refusal, he threatened to destroy Carthage. At that time, the city was not yet powerful and impregnable, so the young queen agreed to the wedding on the condition that the king would not touch Carthage and its inhabitants. The moment the marriage ceremony was completed, she threw herself on a sword. In this way, she saved Carthage from King Yarbas and in effect never became his wife. But since the marriage ceremony had been performed, the king could no longer make any claims against the Carthaginians. According to legend, after the queen's death, the Carthaginians declared Dido the city's patron goddess. Historians still debate whether she actually existed, although chronicles mention that very Pygmalion, whose sister she supposedly was and from whom she fled Phoenicia. He ruled precisely during the years Carthage was founded. Whether he had a sister named Dido is a mystery. But modern Tunisians like the legend of Carthage. They are proud of the brave Hannibal, after whom they name streets and hotels. They also chose a name from the past for their airport, Carthage. And on the 1 dinar coin, they depicted the first queen of Carthage, Dido.